Welcome to Scaring YouTube channel. Its story of fear, paranoia, and unspeakable evil. A story that will crawl under your skin and make you question the very shadows around you. Tonight, we delve into the twisted mind of a predator, a shadow that walks among us, unseen but always lurking. This is the tale of the Shadow Hunter, serial killer whose reign of terror will haunt your darkest nightmares. Before going into please subscribe to my channel. I get motivated to make more scary and horror stories. Let's the story begin. It's the Shadow Hunter. In the small, quiet town of Hollow's End, the streets were empty by nightfall. Once, this town was lively, a place where everyone knew each other, where children played in the streets until the sun dipped beneath the horizon. But not anymore, not after the killings began. It started innocuously enough, missing persons cases. A young woman on her way back from work. A drifter no one knew too well. A couple whose car had broken down on the outskirts of town. Days would pass, weeks even, and they simply vanished. At first, the police thought it was a string of unrelated disappearances. But then, bodies started to show up. The first one was found deep in the woods near the old Courier woman, bound with rope, her throat slit, but not before she was tortured. The marks on her body told a story of unimaginable pain. Carved into her flesh were strange symbols, like something from a cult or an ancient ritual. Her eyes, though, they were open, frozen in sheer terror, staring into the void as if she had seen something beyond the world of the living in her final moments. The town was shaken, but no one could have predicted what would follow. A month later, another body was found. This time, it was a man tied to a tree with barbed wire, his face mutilated beyond recognition, like the first victim. The strange symbols were etched into his skin. The whispers started the work of a sadistic serial killer. The press dubbed him the Shadow Hunter, for no one ever saw him. He moved in silence, like a shadow slipping through the cracks of reality, preying on the vulnerable. Local police were baffled. No evidence, no fingerprints, no witnesses. Whoever the killer was, he was meticulous, always one step ahead. Rumors began to spread. Some said the killer wasn't human at all, but a specter, a ghost from a dark past that had come to claim the souls of the living. Others whispered about an old legend and ancient curse tied to the land that Hollow's End was built on, a curse that had been awakened by blood. But those were just stories, right? Into the investigation. Detective Sarah Greene was new to Hollow's End, a transfer from the city. She had seen her share of grisly crimes, but nothing prepared her for what she was about to face. The killer was beyond deranged. This was ritualistic, methodical, and above all, it felt personal. As she studied the case files, she noticed something odd. Each of the victims seemed to have some kind of connection to an old case from over 30 years ago, a case that had been long buried by the local police. It was a case involving a man named Jacob Thorne. Jacob Thorne was once a well-respected historian, obsessed with ancient occult practices. In the late 80s, he was accused of the gruesome murders of 3 townspeople, each found with symbols carved into their bodies, much like the current victims. Thorne swore he was innocent, but before he could stand trial, he disappeared. Some said he fled the country. Others believed he was dead, but his body was never found. As Detective Greene dug deeper, she realized that each of the current victims was connected to people who had testified against Thorne all those years ago. The pattern was clear. Someone was seeking revenge for what had happened to Jacob Thorne. But who? The hunter revealed. The night air was thick with tension as Sarah drove through the narrow, winding roads leading to the abandoned Thorne estate. The house stood like a monument to forgotten horrors, its windows shattered, the walls covered in decades of grime and decay. Inside, it was worse. Dust choked the air, and the faint smell of rot clung to everything. As Sarah stepped inside, the floor creaked beneath her boots. Her flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing grotesque murals painted on the wall symbols, the same ones found on the victims, and what appeared to be portraits of a faceless man. Suddenly, she heard a faint noise, like someone breathing heavily. She turned, her flashlight sweeping the room, but there was nothing. Still, the feeling of being watched gnawed at her nerves. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw movement, a shadow darting between the walls. She spun around, her gun drawn. "Show yourself," she yelled into the darkness. But there was no response, only silence. And then the voice came, low and menacing. "You should have stayed away, detective." The words sent a chill down her spine. She knew that voice. It was Jacob Thorne. But how? From the shadows, he emerged, a gaunt figure, his face obscured by a mask made from the skin of his victims. In his hand, a jagged blade gleamed in the dim light. "I've waited for this moment for so long," he hissed. "They thought they could bury me. They were wrong." Sarah's heart raced as Thorne lunged at her, his blade slicing through the air. She barely dodged the attack, firing her weapon as she scrambled for cover. But Thorne moved with unnatural speed, like a predator in the dark. The chase led through the labyrinth of the old house, down into a hidden basement. There, Sarah found something far more horrifying than she could have imagined: a room filled with grotesque altars, skulls, and the mutilated bodies of Thorne's victims, arranged in a ritualistic display. The symbols on the walls began to glow faintly, as if imbued with some dark power. "Do you see?" Thorne whispered from the shadows. "It's not just about revenge. This is destiny. Do you see?" Thorne whispered from the shadows. "It's not just about revenge. This is destiny." In the final confrontation, Sarah realized that Jacob Thorne wasn't just a killer. He had become something else, something far more sinister. As he cornered her, she fired her last shot, the bullet finding its mark. Thorne collapsed, his body crumpling to the floor. But as he lay dying, he smiled. "You may kill me," he rasped, "but you can never stop the darkness." With those final words, his body seemed to dissolve into the shadows, leaving nothing behind but the chilling echo of his laughter. Jacob Thorne may be gone, but his legacy of terror remains. The people of Hollow's End will never forget the shadow that once hunted them. And neither should you, because sometimes the darkest evil isn't found in monsters or ghosts. It's found in the hearts of men. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, you never know what may be lurking just beyond the light. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more terrifying tales. Sleep tight if you can.